everybody, and welcome to Getting to Know Your Neighbor. Now, the concept behind this is everybody's got a neighbor, but sometimes you don't know it. Your neighbor has an interesting or compelling background or story. And today, we're talking with just such a person, Andy Hersey. Andy, thank you so much.
Thank you, Mark.
For inviting me into your home and allowing me to come down here. If you live in Benson, Andy is your neighbor. And of course, basically all of southern Arizona. Andy, you are in my mind, a storyteller, songwriter, singer, guitar player, but how would you describe what you do?
Songwriter, singer-songwriter.
Okay.
You know, like if you're going to put it on a tax form.
Well,
or a passport.
The reason I say that is because you are in a kind of a unique position where there's a lot of entertainment around southern Arizona, and people are normally playing the songs that they hear on the radio, which is good. That's what people want to hear a lot of times. But you've kind of developed a niche where you've written a lot of songs. You've got a good library of music that you've written, and people want to hear them. They request them. And most of those songs are really stories. They're 3, 4, 5-minute stories, and that's hard to do.
Well, there's still a need for it.
Oh,
I
absolutely.
think. I think there's still a need. You know, there's a need for all of it.
Yeah.
And I think if we're true to ourselves that way, whether it's writing or performing, reading a room. Music is for everybody. Yeah. I mean, it really is. And if we find our way that way, if we make it about the crowd, there's really no way to go wrong. And the good songs stand the test of time. Every once in a while, we'll get to put in an obscure song that might not be popular or was never a hit. But if we choose the right time, we may introduce that part of that genre, that era, to a brand new set of folks that hadn't heard it before.
And it's not that you don't play. I mean, I hear you play Garth Brooks, and I hear you play George Strait, but a lot of people recognize you through the more traditional country music, Chris Christopherson, Johnny Cash, and I think you and I have some of the similar musical heroes. The storytellers. I mean, Who are the guys you love listening to?
So most certainly. Chris Christopherson, Townes Van Zandt, Bob Dylan.
But you got Jerry Jeff and Guy.
Jerry Jeff Walker, Guy Clark. Oh my goodness.
What was
There's
guy
so many. Rodney Crowell.
Oh my gosh, he's absolutely.
There's a lot of times we used to sit around and listen to a lot of Rodney Crowell songs. We've known each other a long time.
Yeah,
and the good songs, they do. They stand the test of time, and that's why we see so many remakes. We see, a lot of people on the radio talking about, showing reverence by naming Hank Jr. or Hank Sr. or Waylon. Well, how about if we just play those songs?
Well, and I think that's what you do, is kind of show your reverence for those people. They're not, they're not on the radio all the time, but you can tell you love those guys, and that comes out in your music. What I'd like to do is just play a little bit of your music. Let's just hear a little bit of what Andy Hersey does.
Mexican moonshine, Mexican moonshine. I fell under the spell when I stumbled over the line. Mexican moonshine, Mexican moonshine. May your heart and your cup overflow under the glow of the moonshine. One winter evening in a place nobody goes, they found that horse that he'd been riding, buried in the snow. An avalanche sent his horses over the cliffs. You see, the man died, but the legend still lives. Horses, hitches, and rocky trails. We drank to Arizona and also Sonora, to the Tierra and to the Aurora. Arriba, abajo, al centro, adentro. Arriba, abajo, afuera, adentro. Next time a diamond won't cut it. Next time she wants love, lots of it. Next time she'll rise above it. She won't be bought again, that does it. And money's nice for a lot of things. wasn't keeping her warm, now was it? She won't want a man made of it next time. A diamond won't cut it.
Andy, now those are your songs. Those are the things that you created. And I want to talk a little bit about the creative process here in a little bit, but I also have a question. We were at that show. That was at Little Abner's, which is a great little steakhouse up on the Silver Bell in Tucson. And it's in front of a live crowd, and a great crowd that night too. But there's always people, and I noticed this, that they're laughing and they're talking, they're watching a ball game. There was a baby crying. Now you can't help that sometimes. But as a performer, you're up there you want people to listen to you. How do you handle the distractions that everybody has to have? And have you ever had to call somebody out or stop it?
Oh, certainly.
You have.
Crave energy in the crowd. If it's not a ticketed show, I'm not famous. I don't have any hit songs. I have some songs that are popular with my friends. We're in the it's a service industry at my level of the game, and we do that with music. And I don't mind. I almost crave crowd noise and energy and the ambient atmosphere and noise that goes on.
Well,
now, the road noise, I don't care too much.
And as long as the check cashes, I guess. But also, you do get people who are in the crowd going, Compañero Blanca, or hitches, horses, hitches, and ride. I mean, they're calling out and they're singing along. So there's that part of the crowd as well.
The original songs, yeah. I'm pretty lucky.
It's fun,
really lucky when we got off the road. It was a conscious decision. We're out there chasing the industry.
Yeah. And I want to talk about that in a little bit. But I first want to I always like to say, start at the beginning. Where'd you grow up? Where'd you go to school?
East Side, Tucson, Arizona. Born in Phoenix, raised in Tucson. My father was a mechanical engineer, worked for Arizona Public Service, and when he passed away, he was the vice president of the natural gas operations.
Oh my goodness!
My mom was a now retired, Tucson Unified School teacher, taught different grades, and they had divorced. My dad remained in Phoenix, and my mom moved to Tucson. We had a house on the east side of town when you could still have a paper route if you were a kid. You could still ride my dirt bike up and down the sand washes and arroyos. And it was very much community. This is when Tucson, Arizona. Now, I'm 54, born in '67, so raised through the '70s, early '80s.
Wish I could say the same. Well, listen, and that's what part of this getting to know your neighbors about is I didn't know that about your parents, but also what I don't think people know about you, and this is people who know you. When you started in music as a young kid, I mean, we think of you with a guitar, your cowboy hat, and traditional country music. That wasn't at all what you started doing.
I was not raised on the ranches. I had to go find that, myself.
Right. But what did you start out playing, and what was the music genre that you started with?
Well, it started in elementary school in a fourth grade or fifth grade. You couldn't play drums until like the fifth or sixth grade, so I started playing trumpet. Beautiful Dreamer and coming around the mountain and things we do in when they had band in school. But then as soon as I was able to play drums, I got a drum set for Christmas. It was the best Christmas ever, and started studying pretty hard. That was going to be my life.
Well,
playing drums.
What kind of music were you playing?
It was jazz. I was in a jazz band. It was the Pink Panther, Jump Shout Boogie.
Yeah. See, I think there's people watching right now going, "Whoa, that caught me off guard."
Well, it was drums. Yeah. If I might, that was my entire life, was my paper route and drums. And can I tell a story about the drums? There in junior high school, there was 3 of us in the band that wanted to play the drum set. There was a kid named Jamie Greco. Jamie, if you ever see this, with love. A kid named Richard Webster. And hello, Richard. Good to see you again. And myself, and we all had to. We learned about it was a pretty full band with Dale Norris was our was our music teacher at Fickett Junior High School. In this band, Jamie Greco that I was mentioning to you, his dad owned a jazz club. It's now a vacant lot, unfortunately, but it was at like Pantano and 22nd Street on the east side of Tucson, and it was called Mickey Greco's Tender Trap. And Mickey Jamie's dad, my schoolmate's dad, would play piano at his own piano bar, a little square piano bar. And then Dale Norris, our instructor at school, would play saxophone in that band. Our private drum teacher, Jamie and my private drum teacher, Uncle Dave Jeffries, Tucson musicians will know Uncle Dave, played drums in that band, and someone who I would come to know and love and befriend and work with at the resorts in and around Tucson, a fellow named Jerry Patak, played bass. So we'd get done with all of our private studies and all of our school studies.
How old were you?
Junior high school age, so it'd be 12, 13.
Okay.
I started school late, so it might have been 11, 12 for some kids, 12, 13, 14, it's in there.
But you were playing in jazz clubs?
Early 80s. No, well, we wouldn't be able to play. We would go in there and order Roy Rogers and listen, and then you could smoke in the bars, and there was cackling laughter, and people get a little bit blue with their conversations, a whole lot of polyester, and me and Jamie with our Roy Rogers drinks, just watching, all these fabulous players, Take the A Train, Watermelon Man, Take Five, Sweet Georgia Brown. Yeah. These are amazing songs and popular.
And that had to be great.
Just jazz, and you can turn that beat upside down. You just learn it, and you watch and sit and just took it all in. Oftentimes I'd ride my bike home well after dark, before the bars closed, catch the first set or something. Yeah. Riding my bike home, just I was raised with a lot of freedom.
Do you remember
a lot of love, but a lot of freedom?
The first time somebody ever gave you money for performing?
Yes. There's a place called the Rincon Market in Vail, Arizona, right in among Rocky. And if you ever drive past there, sorry, I don't know the owners now, but there's a loading dock, and inevitably there'll be some Shamrock milk crates and things like that. Well, they moved those crates out of the way, and I had a little speaker about as tall as or shin bone, and I had and just plugged in and played to a really. And I remember I was sweating so much because I was nervous, and it was a hot summer day and right into the sun. And on that little loading dock, about the size of one of these stools we're sitting on, they gave me $35 to start playing. And then I started playing at Webb's Steakhouse.
Way out on the east
side. I'd walk around table to table. You can't, just play acoustically and walk around table to table mariachi style. That's the first time I ever got $100 for playing. They had a tip booth up by the old cash register where you punch in, it rings up the number. They had a boot up there, tips for Andy, and they punch in the register. You hear that ringing, and somebody would walk out, and you see him reach back, put money in a black leather tip boot that was on a triangle wooden base that somebody had screwed to that base, and they put it right there, and that's what I played for.
And $100. That had to be a milestone.
100 American.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Well, listen, I know that you eventually, you went through that jazz phase, and I'm sure that was great training for whatever music format you want to eventually follow.
Still love jazz.
Yeah, and you decided to pick up the guitar, and you started songwriting, and we're going to talk about that too. But I think you gravitated toward, as I said, the guys like Jerry Jeff and Guy Clark, and even a guy like Baxter Black. And if you don't know who that is, he's from Southern Arizona, but he was a humorist, an author, a columnist, just a genuinely funny, down-home
veterinarian,
guy.
Cowboy,
How
cowman.
Did you meet him?
Cowman. Long story short, I was working on the San Rafael Ranch in Southern Arizona, Santa Cruz County, south of Patagonia and Sonoyta, and I was playing on the weekends at the stakeout restaurant, forever endearing. The stakeout restaurant is just wonderful. And I would step off a horse Friday afternoon, and I'd go play. Saturday, go play. Sunday I had off, so I didn't have to get off a horse or have my herd book in my pocket that day. And Baxter Black came in one time, and there was a few people he was with, and just happened to know a song titled Night Rider's Lament. which was written by a terrific, brilliant man who never met, named Michael Burton. I hope to meet him someday. I understand he's
Probably
passed,
not a lot of people knew that song, but you did.
Michael
And
Burton.
Baxter was impressed.
Back to Baxter, and we was just a quick handshake. Then just a few weeks later, received a call from one of the people that were on his staff and family that came in, and he was doing a promotion on RFD TV, and would I come down and be part of the promotion and play my guitar and do it? And so that's how I met Baxter.
And Ian Tyson is a guy his music is legendary around the world, and he tells stories. And he actually called you one time on your phone.
He did.
Where else would he call you?
I was on the road. I had left the ranches. I was in a 15-passenger van, and by myself. I had met Ian through some friends, Bruce Andre.
Oh, no, Bruce.
A wonderful artist and singer-songwriter. And we all went. We had branded one day on a Vera Earl, and I put shoes on horses the week before for the branding, and I got a chance to play that song around a campfire for Ian and Bruce. Pass the guitar, and that's tall.
Compañero Blanca.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yes, Compañero Blanco. I'm getting ahead of myself.
That's such
here.
a great song. I mean,
well,
everybody loves that song.
Thank you. I don't think it'll never reach. It'll never really go viral. It'll be a hit song. It's not formula. It's not popular. It's indigenous to the Southwest.
Story.
Ian Tyson had called on the phone from a restricted number so that I couldn't, call him back late at night drunk or hungover.
Let's call Ian.
Hey, I'm broke down in Alamogordo, New Mexico. What do I do? But he that kept me about there. I was getting ready to get off the road, and at that time, he called and he told me that song was very. Now this is Ian Tyson.
Right.
Not only did he headline the Elko Cowboy Gathering for years, but it was Ian and Sylvia back in the Village with Bob Dylan and Gordon Lightfoot and all those. As it goes, though, it kept me sleeping in the van for an extra 6 months out on the road because Ian called and said, "Attaboy."
And I want to talk to you a little bit about that in a moment. But so you developed into writing your own songs. Tell me about your process of writing songs. I mean, I don't know. Do you wake up and say, I got an idea, or do you sit down with the guitar and start picking? What do you do?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Both of those.
All of the above?
All
Okay.
those. We have to know what we're singing about in order to know what happy chords or sad chords to put behind it. And everybody's writing process is different. And it may vary. Some songs write themselves, as Guy Clark said, immediately in the time it takes to pen to paper.
Yeah.
Other songs, it sounds like two different people wrote it because it took so long to write it. You've changed, you change from decade to decade. If it takes you 10 years to write something, then which it oftentimes
You're not the same
have.
person you were.
Yeah.
But there's also a cleverness to, it's not just a rhyme. It's a rhyme with a story inside it and stuff. Have you done creative writing and those kinds of things?
Oh, well, yeah, thank you for that. I failed terribly out of Pima Community College. Got a lot out of one particular instructor, creative writing instructor named Bob Kish. Had an amazing way of putting ideas forward. The first day in class, in this creative writing class, he asked the class to close their eyes and picture a little red wagon. And we all did. And he said, okay, everybody got it. We came back and opened our eyes, and he said, now, if I were to ask everybody to write down, give me 500 words on that little red wagon. My little red wagon, in my mind, the closest thing I could come up with, Grammy's front yard, radio flyer,
Yeah.
missing, hard rubber tires with part of it missing. When you pull it down the road, it does one of these, and it was rusty and green.
Wasn't a little red wagon.
Wasn't a little red wagon at all.
Okay.
My little red wagon is green.
See, that's when you.
That's why I never made it in the industry, Mark.
Well, I don't know. You have to kind of go into your mind where everybody probably had a description about their little red wagon. Yours was a little green wagon.
Yes. As we write songs for anybody, this has been my experience. I have no hits. I hold no degrees. But my experience is if we write and it's true for ourselves, it will be true for other people.
Yeah.
Because of that.
Yeah.
That lenience, that red or green, gray area that Bob Kish put forward.
If you're telling the truth, it's got a chance. If you're not telling the truth, it doesn't have a chance.
Isn't that it? That's exactly it, Mark.
You know, speaking of Little Red Wagons, let's talk about your boys. Tell me about Stephen and Kyle.
Stephen was born first. I think just about to hit 30 or something, aren't you, son? They're both Stephen, Kyle, both wonderful young men. They've always have been.
Yeah.
Steve is living on the east side of Tucson now, and a wonderful mechanic, and very happy in life, and quite content. Answers the phone, when Dad calls.
Good for him.
I couldn't be more proud. Kyle as well. Couldn't be more proud. A musician type, drummer.
Yeah.
But on his own. This is not his art, as he puts, and songwriter as well. Guitar, ukulele, writes wonderfully melodic, insightful, incisive songs. Nowhere near the country western stuff. Someone will come up and say, "Kyle Hersey, are you Andy Hersey's boy?" And it'll almost get under his skin a little bit, because he's doing just fine on his own. He never once. And we played music together, of course, growing up. There's always instruments around the house, but he's doing he's
following Dad's path, but he's also following his own path.
A dear friend, Eric Truelove, was the first one that ever guided him toward teaching. A dear friend, Eric Truelove, and he's one of the guys who were on the road, and we recorded a lot together. He actually produced the last sound recording, but
Well, I've known you for a long time, and I remember your sons when they were just little kids, running around playing in that ranch you guys lived on down there in Sonoyta. But I'll tell you what I remember about them is they were they were kids, but they were extremely polite. There was yes sir, no sir, thank you, can I get you another beer, Mr. Bateman? That kind of thing. But that's what I remember, and I'm just glad to see them continuing to do well and do. Now that brings me to another point too. When you walk around with a guitar, it's almost like it's your wingman. You walk into a place and you got a guitar, people look. Well, okay, that might be your closest friend for many years, but then a couple years ago you met somebody that became your closest friend, your beautiful wife, Holly.
Absolutely.
Tell me about Holly.
Well, Holly and I met, long story short, I was working on the San Rafael Ranch in southern Arizona, Santa Cruz County, south of Patagonia and Sonoyta, and I was playing on the weekends at the steakout restaurant.
Yeah.
It was the steakout restaurant, the first time I remember having any conversation with her at length, and come to find out our paths had crossed many times, as she had been working for a client for whom I used to shoe horses.
Yeah.
Here was this gorgeous cowgirl with a sky blue shirt on and cowgirl tan. She wasn't wearing her hat that night. Denim skirt, tall, high top, custom made blonde boots. She's got her arms folded, and she's standing in the back of a packed room where they had to move the tables out of the way for more dance
Like right out of Urban Cowboy or something.
It is. It really is, And I had been off the ranches for a long time, so might have well been Urban Cowboy. But I looked at her, and she looked at me, and I looked back at my buddy who was playing drums, Eric Truelove, I mentioned a minute ago, and I said, "Is she looking at you, or is she looking at me?" He said, he's playing along, he says, "Who?" And I said, "Never mind, And I hadn't even gotten a scrimmage. I hadn't even thought about falling in love again, or even looking.
Well, listen, I'll tell you.
She changed my life.
Look, I think you're a handsome feller and you got a lot of charm, but I think you outpunted your coverage there too, brother. I guess you and I could say it similar. We wake up every morning thinking our wives don't wake up and going, "What did I do?"
Yeah. Kim and Holly probably get together with some kind of a support group and make millions.
Now, and nowadays, though, of course, your family keeps you a little more grounded around Southern Arizona. This is your work, but you've done the Nashville thing. You've lived in a van for weeks on time, touring the country. Just tell me a little bit about that.
Well, the Nashville thing, I never moved there ever. I love Southern Arizona too much. I never got the meetings. I had gone there half a dozen times or something. So, and I don't mind. The great town. a lot of friends there. Still wasn't for me. I thought I'd just stay at home, create culture here, because I'm from here.
Yeah.
Wasn't raised on the ranches, but I spent a lot of time on them and know a little bit about. I learned how to keep some animals healthy for a long time.
Well, that's another thing too. When you hear your songs, it's about the ranching life, but you've walked that walk. You've worked on ranches, you've shoed horses, you've done that stuff here in Southern Arizona. So you have an authenticity with what you sing and what you write.
Okay, I take that. Not the do all end all, but it takes a lot of good. That lifestyle lends itself to good teaching. So in the absence of my father, I had to go find people to be like. Everybody thinks they learn from the best, but what we ought to do is learn from the best we know. We can't claim that they're the best because we haven't been all over the world. We haven't met everybody. Yeah, would you agree? I mean, I think.
I like what you said. We got to learn from the best we know, because you're right. We don't know everybody. There might be somebody better out there we could learn from, but let's learn with what we got right here.
Absolutely.
So a little bit of your take on the music business. People don't buy records anymore. Now they do go to shows, as you well know. But where can people hear your music?
Oh, we have a Pandora station.
Okay.
Andy Hersey, Pandora station. Yeah, all the outlets.
I know you're on Spotify.
We're on Spotify.
I've got a Spotify library, and it's got all the usual suspects, but of course, much of your music.
CD Baby and like that. Nowadays, people find their art. All of our playlists are so different than from one to the next. Right. And we can. It's eclectic. We can have Thelonious Monk. Yeah. Had a sponsor. It takes outside money to start this independently. It's not all about here again, not to cast aspersions on anybody, this wasn't my avenue or those that I ran with. We were out there trying to earn it in bars, thought after 20 years, well, somebody will take notice.
Yeah. Look, there's 10,000 people a day move to Nashville, and 5 people a year maybe get a hit song on the radio. But you certainly made your mark on Southern Arizona. Again, I mean, I'm thoroughly convinced that most of the population either know you personally, because you seem to know everybody, or they certainly know of you and know who you are and know what you do. Now, please go visit Spotify or Pandora and make sure you kind of give Andy Hersey a listen. Now, every time I see you, usually one of the first things out of your mouth is, "Hey, did I tell you the one about?" You've always got some joke, and that's how it starts. So let's have one of those.
Well, it's a good way to kill time. It's small rooms where I play, so it's a good way to kill time when you're tuning your guitar. That way the stage doesn't go dark, the fishbowl doesn't go dark. What about, here's one that my friend Jeff Epley had let us all know about recently. It was an older couple. They had been married for 70 years or more, and they were, obviously on in years, and both of them suffering from some memory issues. Yeah. And they're in the living room, and he stands up and said, "Sweetheart, I'm going to go to the kitchen. Can I bring you anything?" She said, "Yes, I'd like some vanilla ice cream with some whipped topping and some sliced strawberries." Okay. "Do I need to write that down?" "No, honey, I'll remember." So off he goes. He comes back 20 minutes later with bacon and eggs. And she says, "Where's my toast?"
That, my friend, is why Andy Hersey is a great singer, songwriter, and storyteller.
Crack myself up.
Andy,
thank you for listening, everybody.
Thanks so much,
Mark, thank you very, very much for this, my dear, dear friend. It's an honor to be here, and this has been a great company with getting to know your neighbor. It's just wonderful, and thank you very much, and I love you dearly.
I always appreciate hanging out with you, buddy.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching Getting to Know Your Neighbor.